They said, we took them to the border and watched them walk across. And they thought I was asking an inappropriate question when I followed up by saying, did you stay long enough to watch him come back? Because I knew that had happened. I had a guy in my courtroom tell me, yeah, that's what I did. Anyway, he was insulted that I would ask that question, but it was a fair question. But anyway, of course then, I thought, well, darn, if I'm going to send him to prison and he's out in 3 months and put somebody else at risk, I sent him to safety. And I figured, well, at least he'll be locked up for 10 or 11 months. And he made it 6 months before they went and deported him that time. But he figured out, don't come back to Smith County because that judge locks you up. So he went to somebody else's county, and hopefully he didn't kill anybody when he went there. But these are the problems that happen when you don't enforce the law. And when you look at the DPS statistics, it gets a little scary, just the amount of recidivism. Now, I don't know if this was true. I read that in somewhere in Mississippi, guy called in, his wife had said, you left the light on out there in the shed. And he said, no, I didn't. He looked out, and there were 4 guys loading everything they had in this big truck. And he said, there's guys out there robbing us. So they called 911, and the dispatcher said, sir, it's 1 in the morning. We won't be able to get anybody out there where you are till in the morning. Just get a good description, try to get the license plate number, and we'll have somebody follow up with you in the morning. And so he hung up, and a few minutes later, 911 gets a call. He said, hey, yeah, I just called in about these guys robbing me, but don't worry, never mind, I shot them all. And he hung up. And in 15 minutes, the place is crawling with cars, and the guys get caught red-handed loading stuff up. And the sheriff said, I thought you said that you shot these guys, though. I thought y'all said you couldn't be here this fast. Anyway, I don't recommend that to anybody because it is a crime to falsely report on 911, but it is a problem when we have the kind of burglaries going on that we do, and it's going to get worse until we start enforcing our immigration law. Now, with Homeland Security, people have said I'm a little bit crazy, and there's nothing crazy about me other than I just want the laws enforced and I want honesty. And when I got a call from our head of DPS here, I hope y'all like Stephen Cross. I like the guy, and I've never found him to be anything but 100% honest with me. And anyway, he was telling me that one of the people that Janet Napolitano, as Secretary of Homeland Security, had put on her top advisory council, given him a classified, secret classification, that he had used his classification to download 2 documents. And he said, you know, we've determined he used his own laptop. We know where he was. He was at his own home. And he downloaded these documents. And then there's a reporter, Patrick Poole, who happens to also be a friend. And he did tell me which national media that he shopped them to, but he tried to get them to print the 2 documents. And they were leery because of how he'd gotten them, and they refused to publish them. And I talked to Steve a couple of times the night before our hearing with Secretary Napolitano. And on the second one, he said, hey, I just talked to her chief of staff, and he assures me he'd done a full briefing with Secretary Napolitano. She knows all about what LB already done, guy from Plano, Republican. And so she knows all about it. She'd been fully briefed. So the next day I was a little surprised when I asked her about it. She said she didn't know what I was talking about, had no idea. Well, that meant either she was lying or her chief of staff lied to the head of Texas DPS. And so I asked her if she would look into it. She said she would. And at the next hearing, I asked her if she did, and she said, I did, and there was nothing to it. Well, Judicial Watch did a Freedom of Information Act request of Homeland Security for such investigation. They never did an investigation. And if you were doing an investigation and a reporter named Patrick Poole had done an article, and in the article he says, I talked to a reporter, or not a reporter, but a publisher with one of the national media, wouldn't you at least call that reporter and see if you could find out something more to go on? Nobody to this day in Homeland Security or any federal law enforcement has ever talked to Patrick Poole. And they weren't interested in checking to see the extent of the breakdown. So I've been warning them about this guy who was one of the featured speakers at the 20th Century's Man of Vision, Ayatollah Khomeini. He was one of the featured speakers for that, paying tribute to Ayatollah Khomeini. The Holy Land Foundation trial that occurred in Dallas, in which the principals of the Holy Land Foundation were found guilty of over 100 counts of supporting terrorism. The biggest prosecution for terrorism, supporting terrorism in American history. It was a big deal. And there were over 200 named co-conspirators. That included the Islamic Society of North America. It included the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. But CARE, last year, after they got so much what they thought was adverse publicity, rightly so, they floated changing their name from CAIR to WTF. And I actually did a speech on the floor and had a big poster with WTF behind me and was explaining this is the new initials that CARE is considering using. And I'm sure people tuned in and Gohmert and WTF. But anyway, apparently somebody told them that may not be the best initials to go to from CARE. But anyway, CARE has a multi-story building that I can see from my office. They have ready access to the White House, Homeland Security, State Department, and they were a named co-conspirator. In fact, CARE, ISNA, they appealed for the Dallas Federal Court to have their names struck as named co-conspirators. They weren't indicted. They were unindicted, but named co-conspirators. And from what I understood from Bush Justice Department people, if they got those initial convictions, which they got in November of 2008, then they were going to come back and follow up prosecuting many of the rest of those groups. Well, November of 2008, they got that conviction. Before it was final, there was a new Attorney General, and he wasn't about to pursue any of those named co-conspirators. They appealed to the Fifth Circuit to ask that their names be struck, and the Fifth Circuit said the same thing. There's plenty of evidence here to show that CARE, ISNA, these others, that they are co-conspirators, that they are supporting terrorism. So no, their names will not be struck. And yet today, even as I speak before you, they have instant access to the President, to the State Department, to Homeland Security. They are the ones that urged a purging of the training materials for our FBI, for our State Department, for our intelligence community. One of the guys, best experts on radical Islam, Steve Coughlin, he was the expert who used to brief the Joint Chiefs of Staff on radical Islam under Bush. He was going to do a 2-day seminar with some other guys out at Langley, and CARE got word of it, called the White House, and the White House stepped in, canceled the 2-day conference or seminar, and he nor any of those who were going to speak are allowed to address anybody in this administration on radical Islam. You have to have ties to radical Islam in order to basically teach about radical Islam. So if you wonder, does this administration keep siding with the wrong guys, you look at who's advising them. Now, you can say like others do that I'm crazy when I really just think I'm using East Texas common sense. In Washington, it's sense. Here, it's common sense. But I'm one of two people that went through the purged materials. They classified what they purged or took out of our training materials, so I can't show you how ridiculous these purged documents are and why most of them should have been left in place. As one of my intelligence friends says, and he's now retired, but he said, you know, we blinded ourselves of the ability to see our enemies. But thank God for Texas. I've had a number of members of Congress from surrounding states that have basically said the same thing. Now, Louie, when you guys pull out, we want to go with you. Don't leave us here with the rest of these guys. We got no plans to pull out. You know, we like to preserve the whole. I'm just saying, you know, if that day comes, don't leave us with the rest. We want to go with Texas. Don't leave us. So anyway, we need to preserve the Union as it is. We're stronger as a country as we are, but some of the rest of the country has got to wake up. Anyway, oh, by the way, Mr. Elibiari, that I'd warned about for a number of years and kept being told, he's fine. He's one of our most trusted assets in the Department of Homeland Security. Last September, they decided to accept a letter of resignation from him after the American journalist's head was cut off. He tweeted out that the international caliphate is inevitable, so people just need to get used to the idea. And once he tweeted that out, Homeland Security thought, well, maybe it's time to let him retire off of our advisory council. So he's not there advising Homeland Security anymore, but a number of his friends are. I'm telling you, we've got foxes that are in the hen house running things, and it's a little disheartening to people. One other little local touch that I haven't talked about, particularly nationally, but last September had a local constituent that got in touch. His son was working for the embassy in Sinai, Yemen. And this was immediately after President Obama had said that Yemen is one of our great success stories. Well, as he was saying that, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels, radical Islamic rebels, were taking over Yemen. And they were moving into the capital, Sinai. And anyway, we had gotten some of our people out of the embassy, but our East Texan was trapped with 3 other people at a hotel, could not get to the embassy. And it was rather amazing, but so they get in touch with me, and me and my staff use our contacts, and this guy that had just retired from Intel, from Special Ops, he gets in touch with his friends, and there was a class near the DC area for Special Ops. And so the head of the class said, okay, we're going to work this as if it's just a hypothetical problem. How do we get these people from the hotel to the embassy and out of the country? And they immediately go on social media, and there's Twitter, and if you knew where to look, you could still find it today. But the Houthis are using social media with pictures of which intersections they've occupied, where they are, what they're planning on doing, whether they're going to attack the embassy or not, what they're going to do. And so they used that to formulate a plan of how to get our people to the embassy and then out of the embassy. And I sent a letter electronically to Secretary Kerry telling him we don't need another Benghazi, get our people out of there before it's too late. And I knew that officially the report was that there was no attack on the embassy, but people there knew there was an attack at the embassy with live fire, and it's time to get them out. This is last September, folks. Well, the Special Ops class used assets we had on the ground in Sinai to get our guys to the embassy and then get them to the airport. And I finally heard from our constituent when he got to the safe country. You know, they wouldn't come immediately to the United States. They'd go to another safe haven before they would come here. And I got word when he got there that he and the others were safe, and they were extremely grateful that I'd gotten involved, and they were worried about some of the rest. Well, in February, we still had people there. So when you saw on the news that they were surprised at how quickly things eroded in Sinai, it's been happening since September. And they should have had an orderly withdrawal. There should never have been anything that the rebels were allowed to take over of ours. They got our vehicles, they got, they won't even tell us what documents that the Houthis were allowed to get. It should never have happened. This has been happening since September. But if they had announced that this was a problem, then it was really inconsistent with what the president said, that Yemen was one of our great success stories. But I'm just proud that we were instrumental in getting people out safely, and they got stuff out with them that was helpful to the country. But I'm telling you, we've got some special op people that work for the federal government. They're not allied to a party, they're allied to the country, and they want what's best for the country, and there's still some of them there. But now one of them had been working for AFRICOM, and he used to drop by the office time to time, and in a year and 3 months after Benghazi happened, I walk in my office and there he is. I said, well, where have you been? He said, I've been scared. And I said, come on, you've never been scared a day in your life. Because really, y'all, he's done things that would cause me to lose the rest of my hair if I was involved in some of the things he has really been out there 100% for our country. And he said, no, I'm not kidding, I've been scared. But I just had gotten a job in the civilian sector and felt like maybe it was safe. But they watch everybody that talks to you, and they know that I walked into your office a while ago. And anyway, I figure I'm okay. I've got a civilian job and don't have to worry right now. But there's a lot of intimidation out there. And so for those of you that work for the state of Texas or Smith County, I know there's always squabbles and problems of some kind. There always are when you got people involved. But man, if you heard directly from some of the people that are dealing with some of the federal issues they are, and the lack of support they're getting when they just want to follow the law and do their job, you would consider yourself the most blessed people in the world to be working for Texas or Smith County. But I'll be glad to take some questions. I know some of you have to get back on the job, but just know I am so grateful for what you do. What risk is it people want to call me crazy? I know I made better scores on SAT or GRE than 99% of the people that fuss at me, so I'm not worried about what I think of my credentials.